Point of order, Mr. David Davis.
Mr. Speaker, I raise this point of order in your position in defending the interests and rights of backbenchers and committees in this House. This morning, in an interview in the Sun newspaper talking about the Communications Data Bill, the Home Secretary, who I see is on the bench at the moment, said the following: criminals, terrorists and paedophiles will want MPs to vote against this bill. Victims of crime, police and the public will want them to vote for it. It's a question of whose side you're on. She goes on to say anybody who's against this bill is putting politics before people's lives. Now, there is a joint committee of the House, this House and the other House, meeting at the moment to pass comment on this bill. The Home Secretary, just apart from deducing a large number of people in this House, is also undermining the work of that committee. Has she asked to come to the House to explain herself? And if not, what can you do to protect us, Mr. Speaker?
Is it on the same theme? It isn't. I'll come to it. I'm saving the right honourable and learned member up. He's worth waiting for, I'm sure. But let me respond to the right honourable gentleman member for Halton Price and Howden. I'm grateful to him for his point of order. And what I would say in response is this: ministers and other honourable and right honourable members must take responsibility for their own words. I haven't received any requests from the Home Secretary to come to the House. The right honourable lady is reported as having expressed herself in strong terms, to which the right honourable gentleman has just alluded, and others, notably including the right honourable member, may disagree with her analysis. The two houses agreed that a joint committee would be an appropriate way of examining the government's proposals in detail. That does not put the proposals beyond comment by others. I'm sure that, as with all joint and select committees, the joint committee will make its report on a careful and sober weighing of the evidence. I hope that's helpful to the right honourable gentleman and to the House. Point of order, Sir Mingus Campbell.
Mr. Speaker, have you received any requests from the Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs to make a statement about the nature of diplomatic relations between the United Kingdom and Israel? Following upon the events last week in New York at the United Nations, a number of actions have been taken and or promised which are admittedly retaliatory in purpose. Would it not be right for the House to be brought up to date as soon as possible about the attitude of Her Majesty's government towards these actions and any future conduct which may be of the same nature?
Further to that point of order, Sir Gerald Kaufman.
May I support the right honourable gentleman on what he has said? Last week, the Foreign Secretary came here to make a statement about a proposed action by Palestinians, and that was right and proper. It is therefore beyond me that when the State of Israel is breaking international law in 3 ways, the Foreign Secretary has not regarded it as necessary to come here today. And when will we have a statement from him?
I'm grateful to the Right Honourable and Learned Member for North East Fife and to the Right Honourable Gentleman for Manchester Gorton for raising this point. With respect to the latter part of the Right Honourable and Learned Member's point of order, I refer to his words directly. It is right that the House should be kept up to date on this matter. There will be precisely such an opportunity at Foreign and Commonwealth questions tomorrow. Now, I'm not psychic, but you don't have to look into the crystal ball when you can read the book. Judging from the historical evidence of FCO questions, I just have a hunch that the Right Honourable and Learned Member and the Right Honourable Gentleman will be in their places. And there is surely a reasonable chance that their eyes might catch mine. I hope that's helpful. Point of order, Mr. Henry Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the 2nd of August, I wrote to the Home Office on behalf of my constituent Vanessa Watson with regard to a dangerous dogs issue. And yet, despite chasing that department, on many occasions have yet to receive a substantive response. Can I seek the advice of the Chair, please, sir, as to what I should do next?
The short answer is timely answers are not just desirable but essential. Secondly, the Home Secretary is on the bench, and is almost thirsting to rise from her seat, as she can if she wishes. And thirdly, I just point out to the honourable gentleman that the Leader of the House is in his place, and I know he'll want to chase an early reply. But if the right honourable lady wishes to come to the dispatch box, she can.
Speaker, I apologise to my honourable friend for the delay in response to his particular question, and I will ensure that that matter is chased up and he receives a more timely reply.
To the Home Secretary, and I hope that's regarded as helpful. I hope there won't be many more points of order. I don't want other people to be unduly delayed, but I'll take a last point of order from Mr. Jim Dowd.
Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply obliged. It relates to the next and main business of the day. You'll be aware that one of the main categories in the Register of Members' Interest is that from media earnings, and they are many and diverse and affect very many members of this House. Could I ask you to decide whether A, everybody who has an interest in that category should declare it in the forthcoming debate, and B, rather than just a completely uninformative, I draw the House's attention to my Register of Interests entry, what it is they're actually pointing to.
Honourable horse. What I would say to the honourable gentleman is that each honourable and right honourable member is responsible for his or her own declaration of interest. On the further point of substance, the declaration of interest should be sufficient to enable the House to recognise the nature of the interest. I hope that that is helpful. And I think, if I may say so, what I have said is, or at any rate should be, to honourable and right honourable members, self-explanatory. Point of order, Mr. Mark Reckless.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Home Secretary met the deadline for appealing to the Court of Appeal in respect of Abu Qatada. She also wrote to me saying that rather than seeking to uphold the test confirmed by our own highest court under which she could deport to Qatada, a decision was taken to adopt the test laid down in January by the Strasbourg court, essentially because we consider the domestic courts were bound to follow it. Is it not the duty of ministers to uphold the law as passed by this House and interpreted by our highest court, rather than this surrender to Strasbourg?
What I would say to the honourable gentleman is that although I understand his extreme strength of feeling on this matter, first, I don't see a point of order there. And secondly, I think that the honourable gentleman is in some danger of veering or trending into areas which are essentially sub judice. And I would urge him to be cautious about that. I know he will find other ways in which to pursue his concerns on this matter, and I'm sure that will happen. Point of order, Mr. David Winnick.
Mr. Speaker, you said obviously, due to the limitation of time, a number of members couldn't be called, and we all understand that. We can't change time as such. But you would have listened to the strength of feeling about the Palestinian-Israeli issue, the very, very strong feeling expressed in the House from all sides for what the Israelis intend to do is totally unacceptable. And I'm just asking you this, if I may, Mr. Speaker, will there be an opportunity before Christmas, before the Christmas recess, for this issue to be raised? Because otherwise, the next Foreign Office questions will obviously be well in the next year.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his point of order. I think there are various possibilities here. First, there is the business question on Thursday morning, at which members can seek an assurance from the Leader of the House as to debating time before Christmas. Secondly, it's open to any honourable member to apply to the Backbench Business Committee for a debate in short order. And thirdly, there are other mechanisms open to members if they seek to engage ministers in further exchanges on these matters. And I say that without prejudice, but I hope it's a helpful reply to the honourable member. I'm certainly conscious of his strength of feeling and a wider sense within the House. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the 10-minute rule motion. Order. I'm sorry to disappoint colleagues. Exceptionally, a point of order for reasons that I think will be apparent. Yes, reasons that will be readily apparent. Point of order, Mr. Red Balls.
Mr. Speaker, could I get your guidance? Is it in order for the Chancellor of the Exchequer preempting a written statement to try and slip out news during topical questions about Northern Rock, which could well have fiscal implications, including for government borrowing, in such a way designed to avoid any proper scrutiny or questioning from the opposition, Mr. Speaker? Is this not just another example of the Chancellor again refusing to answer questions in this House? Does he think that it's in order for the Chancellor or another Treasury Minister to make an oral statement in this House today and be properly scrutinised, rather than once again trying to play fast and loose with the public finances and Parliament, Mr. Speaker?
The right honourable gentleman, I will hear the Chancellor of the Exchequer raising a point of order as well on this matter, and then I will give a verdict.
Well, to that point of order, Mr. Speaker, there was no preempting of this announcement. It was laid as a written question 1 hour ago, and I thought it would be appropriate, Mr. Speaker. I thought it would be appropriate, Mr. Speaker, to illuminate in oral questions, as ministers frequently do from this dispatch box, on written statements. There is, of course, an economy debate as well this afternoon, and we can answer these questions. It relates to errors that took place in Northern Rock in 2008 that have affected a number of customers, and customers will be receiving letters from Northern Rock. But as I say, Mr. Speaker, I thought it would be helpful to illuminate the details of the written statement, but apparently that is not the case.
Order, the right honourable gentleman from... No. The right honourable gentleman member from Morley and Outwood is itching to raise a further point of order, but order. But what I say to the right honourable gentleman is let him hear what I've got to say first. This cannot be a debate. It is a couple of points of order to which I'm giving a reply, and my response, whether members like it or not, is as follows. First, I feel sure that the Chancellor of the Exchequer was intending to be helpful to the House. It is not for me to impugn motives, and I do not do so. However, was it a good idea to handle this matter via the device of topical questions in the way that was done? The answer is no. It could have been better done. I'm sure that the honourable gentleman, the member for Braintree, was doing his best according to his own lights, but it was unwise to deal with it in that way. And secondly, I would simply make the point, well, it may be topical. That doesn't necessarily mean that it should be raised at topical questions. My understanding, very easily explained, my understanding, yes, it may be a topical matter. That doesn't mean that it should be the subject of a topical question. If the government has tabled a written... No, I don't require any assistance from the honourable gentleman. He should do his own job to the best of his ability. I'm giving a verdict on this matter. The government had laid a written ministerial statement. If they wanted to make an oral statement, they could have made an oral statement. They didn't make an oral statement. As I understand it, they made a written ministerial statement. I repeat, I'm sure the Chancellor meant well, and I think that that is the kindest thing in the circumstances that I can reasonably say. There is nothing further to be said on this matter now, though there may well be in the future. We will leave it there. Point of order, Mr. Mark Tammy.
Thank you. Last Thursday, the Secretary of State for Wales attended an event at Airbus in my constituency. He didn't have the good grace to advise me of this.
Outrageous!
I know he has one of the busiest jobs in government, but do you agree that he should advise members when he is on these type of visits?
Visits on official business, yes, it's a courtesy.
Yes, visits on official business are subject to the requirement of advance disclosure to the member whose constituency is affected. The level of busyness of a member is not a material factor. Often these very busy, very senior, very respected ministers also have significant numbers of people available to help them. But we'll leave it there for today. Oh, the day wouldn't be complete without a point of order from the honourable gentleman, the member for Rhondda.
Well, I haven't done for quite a while, Mr. Speaker, but you may have noticed that on occasion, ministers make speeches outside the House. and we have no notice of this, and then until suddenly we read about it in the Telegraph, and sometimes these are very important developments of new policy. But we now know for certain fact that the Prime Minister is going to be making a speech on Europe in the new year, and I think it's probably going to have some policy in it. So wouldn't it be a good idea if that speech were made in the House rather than anywhere else?
I think that the new year will bring new challenges, and it would be wise to embark on them then, but not now. And in the hallowed words of the late Lord Whitelaw, I generally find that it is better to cross bridges only when I get to them. I don't know, and I can't very well ask Lord Whitelaw, I'm afraid. But we'll have to make do for today, and I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his point of order and other colleagues to boot. Point of order, Mr. Rob Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have given prior notice to the honourable member concerned of this point of order. During Prime Minister's questions on the 24th of October this year, the honourable member for Oldham East and Saddleworth made a very serious accusation on the floor of the House that a relationship existed between, I quote, Virgin Care donations to the Tory party, the number of Virgin Care shareholders on clinical commissioning groups, and the number of NHS contracts that have been awarded to Virgin Care, end quote. This information appears to have been picked up from a blogger who has since apologised and withdrawn the assertions that were made. The honourable member's remarks carry a very serious and clear insinuation, potentially of a corrupt relationship between Virgin Care, the Conservative Party, and the award of NHS contracts. However, Mr. Speaker, when I checked the Electoral Commission's online register of political donations, I found no record of any donation by Virgin Care to any political party. Mr. Speaker, if a member finds that he or she perhaps inadvertently made false claims or assertions on the floor of the House, is it not the tradition of this place that the member should come to the House at the earliest opportunity to set the record straight?
What I say to the honourable gentleman is twofold. First of all, I hope and am confident that the honourable member has given proper notice to the honourable member for Oldham East and Saddleworth of his intention to raise this point on the floor of the House. He indicates his assent, and I thank him for that. Secondly, in specific reference to his question, honourable and right honourable members must take their own responsibility for the accuracy of what they say in the House. The Chair cannot take over that responsibility. The point will have been heard by the honourable member and by others, and I thank him for putting his point on the record. Yes, we're not going to have a debate about the matter that the honourable gentleman couldn't raise, order, but if he wants briefly to raise a point of order, he can. Mr. Steve Rotherham.
Mr. Speaker, I understand your concerns about matters that are raised in this House which are sub judice, and I would never put you as the Speaker of this House in that position. My question was going to be that despite what the outcome might be, every eventuality should be afforded to the families, and that the Secretary of State should be looking at a possible outcome where the families would need support through the public purse for any inquest that might come as a decision out of the High Court tomorrow. That's all I was asking, Mr. Speaker.
I understand what the honourable gentleman was asking and what he describes as all he was asking, but I'm afraid that the operation of the sub judice rule isn't undertaken or applied on a selective basis, entertaining various hypothetical scenarios. If a matter is sub judice, and I am so advised, it is sub judice, and it isn't open in such circumstances for a member nevertheless to pick upon an aspect of the matter which he thinks it timely to raise. So the ruling I gave was on the basis of advice at the time. I believe it to be correct. If I were incorrect, I'd be very happy to say so to the honourable gentleman. The honourable gentleman is indefatigable in pursuit of this issue, and very properly so, but he will accept that we must operate on the basis of the rules. He said his piece, I respect that, and that's the end of it. Point of order, Mr. Chris Grayling, the Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I think it might be helpful simply to say that my department is very mindful of the financial pressures faced by the Hillsborough families. We all recognise the very difficult circumstances they've been through, and they are certainly in our consideration.
That isn't sub judice. It is a relatively unusual. It isn't sub judice. It's a relatively unusual way for the Secretary of State to voice the government's thinking on this matter. But I thank him in the spirit in which the comment is made. No doubt if the government has got further and better particulars on that matter at some point, that will become clear. We'll leave it there, and I thank him. Point of order, Laurie Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've never raised a point of order until today, but I do feel that I must. I tabled a question for today's questions regarding the Family Justice Review. The question was approved by the Table Office and successfully drawn in the ballot under number 5. However, it was withdrawn by the Ministry of Justice themselves as they deemed it to be irrelevant to their department, despite the fact that they have been corresponding with me on the matter since last June. My constituent, Mr Neil Brotherton, who's trying to improve a child's access to their family when parents separate, was to have been here today to hear the Minister's answer. Can you advise me, Mr Speaker, as to what course of action I may now pursue, not just for Mr Brotherton, but for other constituents as well?
Happy to oblige the Honourable Lady. I'm sorry that it was her first point of order, but I'm quite certain that it won't be her last. What I would say to the Honourable Lady really is twofold. First of all, my understanding, and I don't wish to be pedantic about it, I think it's factually correct and it's an important point. The question wasn't, as she put it, withdrawn. The question was transferred. And in terms of how the Honourable Lady should proceed, she's an ingenious member and she will know that there is plenty of scope for tabling questions, for seeking adjournment debates, for raising matters during oral question periods, and there is also the auspices of the Backbench Business Committee, so there are plenty of facilities available to the Honourable Lady. What I would say to her is this: although the Table Office seeks to advise honourable members where there is a risk of an oral PQ being transferred, the prediction of the allocation of ministerial responsibility is not an exact science. It is for the government to decide where responsibility lies for answering a question, and I do not intervene in such decisions. I recognise that they can be the source of frustration or irritation, but they're not matters for the Chair. And very specifically, I must make the point, for the Honourable Lady's benefit and that of the House, that nothing disorderly has occurred. Further, I'm not sure there is a further to that point of order, but the Honourable Lady's been in the House 25 years, so I think we ought to give her the benefit of the doubt. Point of order, Jane Wally.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Further to that point of order, I too had an oral question which was down for answer under the Justice questions and was told at the last minute that it was transferred over to the Cabinet Office because the Honourable Member for Rushcliffe, who is now dealing with it, was unable to answer it as part of the Justice front bench. And I would ask you to have regard to ways in which it is difficult to raise issues on behalf of our constituents because of internal transfers within the government.
Well, I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for her point of order. What I would say to her is that my earlier statement still applies, that it is a matter for the government, but not least as we're in the presence of the esteemed Right Honourable and learned member concerned, the Right Honourable learned gentleman, the member for Rushcliffe. No, there's no need for him to rise from his seat at this point. There is always a pleasure to listen to him. But what I would say is that I attach great importance to early decisions on transfer. If a question is going to be transferred, it is for the convenience of the member and of the House as a whole, if that decision is taken and notified to the member at an early stage. And after his 42 years in the House, I know that the Right Honourable and learned gentleman would be the first to assent to that uncontroversial proposition. Perhaps we can leave it there for today, and we come now, I think, to the 10-minute rule motion. Mr. Alex Shelbrooke.